and welcome to our circle. I am Salve Women. For today, we're going to talk about the pursuit for better, starting with the yes or the no. And sometime in life, I've heard, perhaps more than once, to really have a positive attitude and a positive outlook. When someone asks you to do something, you just say yes at first, and just really having that intent to be helpful and having the right mentality. And I think how wonderful it is to really just say to yourself, I'm going to say yes right now. And even if there's going to be a point where I'm not able to, at least I had the right mindset to really think about it in a good natured way with the hope to be able to help or give some aid. And yet I think about all these scientists that I have come across who then got to a point where they said, maybe we've gone too far. And so, I talk about the yes or the no as a guarantee in life. Sometimes when we say yes, we at first go, okay, this is great. This is going very well. And then there's a point where things start to really fall into question as to how far do we go until we stop? And when is it that we really have an endpoint to this? And so, again, in my article, we talked about reproducing, and we're definitely made to reproduce. In that way we can multiply and continue to propagate. I mean, we're the most complex known out there, and so it's really interesting to fascinate ourselves with all the many things that we have become. And it is in our what we produce that really makes us really see our magnificence. We are this created masterpiece, each and every one of us, to really arrive to that level of, this is me, this is what I was made for, this is what I really have been aspiring to become or do or create. And there's this piece in you that says, okay, enough is enough, and I think I'm good. But then at the same rate, there are those that look at you and go, but you can do so much more. You can do so much more, or you can continue and pursue what it is that you're already creating. And there, excuse me, there goes that science piece where you think to yourself, but going further may not be a good idea. I mean, if we are essentially creating something that we had first said, this is the pinnacle of it all. And then all of a sudden we think the pinnacle is not the highest level, and then we want to take it to a different level. I think of all the edifices in the world, and it just seems like just buildings are getting taller and taller and thinner just to fit them into smaller spaces as well. So we're not only just growing outwardly, but we're growing up. And I just think of ourselves as that this dissatisfaction of, if they can do it, then I can do it even better. And that's a great attitude. But then there goes that time where you have to ask yourself, but why? What will that contribute to? Is it just merely an ego? Is it merely just something you want to pursue just to prove that you can? And when you do, and if you shall, does that really mean that it's anything that's going to benefit the world? And so I think about, again, that we're definitely meant to reproduce, and to really create an offspring for who we are, our makeup. And it's great when you have a gene pool, as Judge Judy would say in the past, where, you're creating something that of yourself that's even in the really hopes of magnificence to continue on who you have become, and then pass that on so that your offspring will then take from it, grow from it, and continue to have betterment and continue to have these improvements in all the many generations to follow. Because, if you have then gotten to a point where you've really established a good stance for your bloodline, or all the many people that you have helped, doesn't even necessarily have to be your bloodline, but those that you have really helped to, you have contributed to in their life to make sure that they continue to propagate and to really respond to the world in a positive way, where we're seeing this greatness, of this dominance of just greatness and goodness in the world, and we continue to shine brighter and brighter. At what point did you then say, that's enough light? We've illuminated enough, and I think that we should be feeling full, and yet we hunger. And so I think about I know this is how I analogize, and I think about like a cereal. Because when I was a child, and back in the day, we really were not into the luxury of having cereal in our home. We were more of like the oatmeal on a good day type of family, and it's made me who I am, and I'm so grateful for the strength that I have arrived to because of such humble means. But at the same rate, there are times where you buy cereal now, and then you think to yourself, and you think back. Cereal aisle used to be so simple. There was always just, do you want the, like I would think like five different things to choose from, and you just got excited that you had an option, that you had some selections. And now it seems like it's just innumerable. And it's gotten to a point where you go one aisle and you just know, going from organic to wheat and, just oats and just so many different ways that we have become so creative, and just creating cereal, we no longer can just fit them in one aisle, and now we've accustomed ourselves to think, if it's not on the aisles, then I can find it online. And so we're constantly just expanding, and it's a beautiful thing. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we're feeding this hunger and we're going about it in a means to continue to improve, but at what degree, and what is the criteria of really that level of, okay, that's enough, like that's as good as it'll get. And yet, do we really know that what is as good as it gets, right? And so we have this human race, and I think that's really honest. When I think of it from that perspective, being a teacher, being a mother, there's really only one race, and that's the human race, leading to higher intellects, because eventually we're going to want to create something of the matter that we won't tire ourselves of creating it. And I think, again, when we think about all these manufacturing companies that perhaps have ceased to exist because we were able to create machines that can create those positions, there's one side that says, shame on us for now taking away these positions where people were doing this. And then there's another piece that says, but wait a minute, they have great minds to now figure out something better that they can do with their mind, other than just the routine things of life, where it doesn't really cause that much brain matter to do, like you're constantly igniting those brain cells so that they don't go away. So again, it's that balance of life, of really knowing what is it that we want out of this. And so who will be the masterpiece, however, if we continue to create something that will then be better than us? Right? Because eventually that's what we'll get to, is that we will continue to build and build and build upon all our many creations until we get to that position where you then have created something that better than yourself. And I think, wonderful. I mean, I look at my children, and I pray that each and every one of them will continue to prosper in the manner of just life, and their heart, their mind, their body, and their spirit just really pure and wholesome in all the many ways, so that when they look at themselves at night, they know that they can look at themselves with dignity, and really just feeling goodness coming out of themselves, knowing that they have really contributed to this world in the most positive aspect, and they're illuminating light rather than any darkness. And that's what you hope for, all those that you have then passed on your light to, and really hoping that you are creating that for the world. And yet I think to myself, when we think about the cereal, it's just a really analogy of many things that we created. I mean, we've created these cars, and at what point did things stop when we created it a certain way, and then all of a sudden it got rid of a certain type of transportation, right? I mean, there's always constantly something. And, we're making things that are now manless. I think perhaps that's the word that's coming to mind right now. But we're starting to create things where we don't even need a conductor to have it go. And so it's like, that's great. But there are still things that I'm looking at, like when I see, just as teaching, I think to myself, the feeling is missing, like if I was to honestly just sit back and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and let this slide just tell you what to do and you follow. You know, it's interesting because I feel, I mean, I just get right back on up. I never, there have been people who say, I don't really ever get to see you sit down, because you have to be proactive in reaching the minds of people and really getting them to feel that you are invested in their heart, their mind, their body and spirit, and that you're wanting to take part in it. And so that's where the piece, where right now we don't have that superhuman, as they say, that we're working to, right? The highest level. I think what that would be, what, the seventh level of intellect, or some five, some three, depending on how you categorize it. And so I think to myself, okay, one of these days I will find someone that is just like me, perhaps better, who can have absolutely handle middle school better than I can. And yet I think to myself, at what point do I then say, but hold on, I believe I'm enough. I believe that my students see me as someone who truly cares. And would they be able to see that in someone that was created? And at the end of it, who will then, be better? Who would we choose? And I truly believe, with all these scientists that have said, we're going too far. It's a little bit scary to see what we're pursuing here, and to that extent that we will arrive to. And I think that this is enough. It's because perhaps they foresee the same things that I foresee. And it's, to me, I don't know if people really are thinking of it as a fear. I'm thinking in more of just an awareness. Would you really want something to replace those you love, those that are around you who give you so much warmth? Like, how could we create all of those pieces of us and then think they are better? Because now we're creating things that we see are better, but when it comes to the complexity of our very self, I have to wonder, will we ever get there? And I know that there are those who continue, who hope for it. If we can build these machines now in so many different sizes and so many different levels and so many different aspects of life to help contribute to this world, I think perhaps we'll get there. Perhaps we will have, wars where people aren't just, we're losing lives because people cannot come to an agreement, or that there are resources that are causing people to then have a disagreement or conflict and fight for those resources that they would like ultimately. And I think to myself, all the pollution that are in the ocean, how could we save this, the life, the sea life, and clean up our mess? It'd be great to start off with those types, and really think from that aspect. But at this point, there's always going to be different areas that we're working toward. And I would like to think that everyone has to ask themselves responsibly, is this going to continue to improve our lives, or is this just creating something that maybe not so necessary? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when it comes to just us, we have to say, what's wrong with us? Like everything that I've done for my own children, and sometimes the things that I do for my students, where I'm getting their pencils ready, or in the past where I used to label everything. And I think to myself, who did that for me? And is everything I'm doing for them to help them, their lives, be a little bit more of a shortcut to their success? Is that really going to make them even better? Or is that going to feed them to a point where they're too completely full, and their hunger will be somewhat different, because it'll just be insatiable and not really understanding the gratification or just the satisfaction of just pure simple bliss, and that contentment and being happy with what's already there. So I think of that, and I wrote this down, who will be the masterpiece then? And I have written, because I didn't want to forget this, many can create a route to evil, but just what one compared to many, right? But because we think money is a route to all evil. I believe that's what's been stated. But I think it allows gateways. It gives us opportunities. And so, reach for it. but it's what we do with it. It's just like anything. It's what we do with it. So I'm hoping I am really addressing these because these have been coming to mind. I love science. I love the creations that I'm seeing. But my thought is, when are we going to say enough? And at what point are we going to be happy with ourselves, with the contributions we've already made? Because some amazing people out there making some incredible contributions. But who are you really doing more for? And, you know, all the applause that you're already getting, is that not enough? And at what, then when you do get to do more, what are you coming to where all of a sudden we're just going to be, like I've said, a serial name and number? When I mean serial, C-E-R-E-A-L, right? I'm facetious in that way. But you got to just rejoice no matter what. I know we're going to keep going. We're made to continue to improve. But what is our focal point? What are we saying yes to? What are we saying no to? Because there's so many things that we have the tendency to just ignore, like not cleaning up our room because we're creating something so magnificent. And yet, should we stop and clean the room first before we move on to that magnificence? Just a thought. In the words of my mother, God bless us all. I'm slowly but surely getting this painting done. So proud of it. Can't wait for it to be complete so I can then just take a look at it, breathe in, and be able to look at it in the means to give me continued peace as it's been given me. And hopefully you have that peace in you that you have found in your own creations, and that you have satisfaction every day no matter what. And just be content with the life that you have been given in the mind of a masterpiece. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next time. In the words of my mother, God bless us all if I haven't said it. Take care.